Hi guys, in this video I'm going to talk about my top 5 book recommendations for the beginner tantric yoga student. The first book I recommend is Osho's Book of Secrets. If you guys know me by now, I really love Osho. He's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and he's also credited as being one of the fathers of Neo-Tantra, although Neo-Tantra can be described as anything from the modern hybridization of Tantra with meditation and yoga and like different modern techniques, or just kind of like the sexual aspect of Tantra. But he's basically one of the teachers that put the spotlight back onto Tantra and helped bring it over to the West. In this book, Osho discusses 112 meditation techniques, and it's framed as most Tantras are, in which Devi asks Shiva several questions regarding the reality of existence, and Shiva answers very poetically, and in these answers he gives meditative techniques. So you can choose either one or a few, or do all 112 of these meditations, and they're supposed to help you on the path to enlightenment. Osho does a really good job of simplifying the tantric texts into layman terms and making it easy and relatable for the modern reader. The second book I recommend is really good for the very introductory beginner student of Tantra who doesn't really know anything about Tantra or where to begin. Shashi Solluna does a very good job of kind of giving an overview of the basics of Tantra and what the elements of Tantra are and how it relates to relationships and intimacy and sexuality. She gives partner practices, and it's generally a very good, authentic source of simplified tantric knowledge. Some of the things she discusses is the philosophy of Tantra, an understanding of Tantra as a spiritual path, the role of relationships, love, and intimacy in modern tantric traditions, the importance of opening your heart to yourself and to others, and techniques to do it, different ways to explore your own sexuality with Tantra, and practices for creating spiritual experiences and higher states of consciousness. The third book I recommend is by a really impressive author named Georg Feuerstein. He's an Indologist who studied different tantric texts, and he's written over 30 different books on yoga, Tantra, Hinduism, and he's really done his research and backed up all of his knowledge by actual scripture. He does a very good job of dispelling the myths about Tantra as a purely sexual practice in the West. Hi. He does a very good job at explaining Tantra and kundalini, the goddess Kali, mudras, mantras, and all the basic elements of ritual as it relates to Tantra. Pretty much any of his books I would highly recommend. The fourth book I recommend is The Introduction to Tibetan Buddhism by John Powers. This book is an overview of all of Buddhism in Tibet, which is important to learn for a very good reason. A lot of Tantric Buddhism overlaps with the Sutrayana tradition, and it's important to understand basically how did Tantra make its way into Tibet from India, and what are the influences, because there's a lot of overlap, and it's important to understand, kind of compare and contrast the different traditions with Tantric traditions, because in order to grasp Tantra, you have to understand the essence of Tantra and how it relates against the general spiritual backdrop of other knowledge. This book also talks about Bön, the pre-Buddhist Tibetan shamanism, which is very fascinating because it has a lot of influence on different rituals in Tantra. It discusses the 4 different schools of Buddhism, Nyingma, Kagyu, Sakya, and Gelug, and the 3 branches of Buddhism, Mahayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana. Vajrayana being the diamond vehicle, or Tantric Buddhism is mostly practiced. The fifth book I recommend is The Introduction of Tantra Shastra by Sir John Woodruff, aka Arthur Avalon, known as the father of Tantric studies. He's a British author who's one of the earliest translators and authors of Tantric books in the West, as early as the 1900s. This book is written as an extended introduction to the Mahanirvana Tantra translation, and it's a very in-depth and raw, authentic view of an actual tantric text. It's not easy to read, it's very Sanskrit heavy, but if you can manage to digest the information, there's lots of jewels of wisdom and knowledge that are very helpful for learning Tantra. I recommend this book because unlike the other more overview style of books, this one's a lot more direct and more in contact with the essence of a tantric text. Those are my book recommendations. Let me know if you have had a chance to read any of these books and what your feedback on them was, if they were helpful towards you, and if you have any other books that you've read that you'd like to share for other people to take a look into. Please also like the video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe and share with others who you think might benefit from this information.